Hello everyone, welcome to today's presentation. This is Selena here, and I'm going to jump right in here. We have a lot to cover. This presentation is designed for educational purposes only and is not engaged in rendering medical advice, legal advice, or professional services. If you feel that you have a medical problem, you should seek the advice of your physician or healthcare practitioner. So let's jump into combating autoimmune challenges naturally. We're going to first look at something that most of us have heard of is cancer. Like, cancer is all around us. We hear it all the time. Wherever we go, we're going to hear something about cancer. But let's look at autoimmunity. There's 50 million Americans with an autoimmune disease. There's $591 million spent by the NIH on research compared to the 6.1 spent on cancer. And what's interesting is that if we have so many that are with this autoimmunity, it pales the cancer pales in comparison, where it's estimated only about 9 million are affected by cancer, and up to 22 million with heart disease. You know, the cost for autoimmunity range in the billions of dollars, where like 100 billion is what it's estimated at, where cancer is about 57 billion. Heart stroke and heart diseases are around $200 billion. So autoimmunity is something that's really taken over, and it's become one of these top contenders in our chronic health situation. So it's something that we really need to look at. And if you're like me, I'd be like wondering, how can we do this naturally? Because the approach that we've taken and the way that our health has progressed over the centuries does not look good here. So let's go back to the 1900s. The leading causes of death were things like tuberculosis, diarrhea, pneumonia. There was heart disease, liver disease, stroke. Cancer was on there. But for the most part, you can see in the graph, it was pretty evenly distributed. There was a few things that were higher, some of these infectious diseases, communicable diseases, but then jump ahead 90 years with all these advancements that we have had. And look what's happening. We have not only these are all epidemics, but look, we have heart disease, cancer, stroke, and we've even left out of here is the medical system itself and the deaths that happen with that because of medical injuries. So anyway, we'll just talk about these diseases and these different other chronic health labels that we are given. But if we look across the board here, it's shifted in the way that our health is being affected. And what is most devastating to me is this. Our children. Over half of our children are chronically ill. 1 in 3 are overweight, pre-diabetic. 1 in 6 has a learning disability. 1 in 9 asthma. 1 in 10 ADHD. And it goes on to like 1 in 88 autism. That actually is an old graphic. It is now around 1 in 35 with autism, 1 in the 20s in our boys. Back when I was a child, autism wasn't really hardly heard of. It was like 1 in 10,000 back in the 70s and 80s, maybe 1 in 5,000. Now it's a common household term. Everybody knows about autism. The course that our children are on is not sustainable, and it's devastating, and it's extremely tragic. For the first time in history, our children are far sicker than we are coming out of the womb. If we look over the last 50 years, the incidences of these autoimmune diseases have skyrocketed. It's just got to be, we've got to change the way we are approaching health. There has to be a shift in how we are addressing the chronic issues in our life. So let me tell you real quick about who I am. I'm the founder of the Functional Perspective and also the Functional Health Mama. I'm a graduate of the Functional Medicine University and also a graduate of Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. I'm a mother of 6. Only 2 of my children survived, and 1 of those has an autoimmune disease. And what I do is I specialize in helping those who suffer from gastrointestinal and autoimmunity issues to learn natural healing methods so that they can regain their health and vitality. And here's the core and the values of the Functional Perspective and the Functional Health Mama. Number 1, all chronic disease has a root cause. Now, there's a caveat to that. I want to make this very clear that when I say a root cause, I'm not saying there's one thing that causes a disease. There's a root to why these things are manifesting. Just like we have a root on a tree has many, many different, parts to that root, there's still a root. There's something underlying as to why our body is manifesting this way. Number 2, that the individual is who determines the outcome, that we do have power over how our body responds. We have so much power that we can influence and support our body. And number 3, that 1, we do not diagnose and treat diseases here. What we do is we help to create health. And it's really co-creating health because you are the one that's going to be creating the health. And number 4 is that we are all about empowering individuals so that they can take charge of their health. You know, if we are not empowered, there's nothing that we can do. We're powerless. There's nothing we can do to change our outcome. We're dependent on somebody else. So what we do is we have to empower you, help you to find those missing pieces and show you how to put those back together again. So here's what we're going to talk about today. What our objectives are is, first, autoimmunity. What is it? And what are some of these early signs that we know, hey, this is the road that we are heading on? And what it means to approach health functionally. Functional medicine, functional health is kind of the latest buzzword. So we're going to talk about what that actually means. And then ways to identify that underlying why. What is our root? What is our root composed of? Especially when we're talking about autoimmunity. And of course, we've got to have practical action steps. You know, having the information without really knowing what we can do about it is not necessarily useless, but it doesn't really help to empower. So we want to help empower you and give you practical steps that you can take with you to get you on that road to recovery and to regain your health and vitality. So first, we have to define disease. What is disease? Okay, so the disease, what happens with our body, we have this amazing built-in response. So there's some sort of trigger, something happens, we're exposed to a toxin, a bacteria, whatever it is, there's something that triggers this response in our body. And that response is going to lead to some sort of inflammation. The inflammation is actually trying to protect us from whatever the invader is, whatever the toxin is, whatever this damage. It's kind of like putting an airbag somewhere in our body. It's similar to that, like a car with an airbag. So that inflammation is really a protective mechanism for our body. Well, that's awesome. When those things go on and on, when it's not resolved quickly, then that's going to put us in the sympathetic state. That sympathetic state is the same as that fight or flight mode, as if we were being chased by a lion. In this state, our body can't repair and rejuvenate because it's in a battle. The army is fighting, it's in an active war, and it's not about, okay, let's go rebuild. We don't start building houses right in the middle where there's, you know, bombs and there's this war zone going on. That's not what we're going to see. We're going to say, oh, I think I'm going to build a new house here right now. No, we wait till things have settled and then we rebuild. Our body does the exact same thing. So then what happens is these things happen and they go on for a while. And we have this whole bunch of symptoms. We have all these different problems, and then we get labeled with a disease. And so we're told that, okay, the disease is your problem. No, it's not our problem. Our problem started back with whatever the trigger was. The disease is at the end of the equation. So as long as we are focusing on that side of the equation, we are never going to get anywhere. We have to stop trying to cure these diseases. The problem is not that we need to stop our body from responding. We need to support our body so that it can win the battle. But instead, what has happened in our conventional world and is the mainstream is, okay, let's block these pathways. We realize that these pathways long-term into damage. Let's just stop the body from doing what it needs to do. And then what happens? We're stuck on another medication and another medication. Like when you talk about the rates of when our children, the medications that they are on is just mind-blowing. And as you get older, the average of medications that someone is on is even more mind-blowing. So we have to change that shift and understand the very founding principle what we have here at the functional perspective is that, hey, there's a root, there's a cause here behind these clusters of symptoms. We have to get underneath there and see what all is going on under the surface. So autoimmunity, you know, what's the difference between autoimmunity and some of these other diseases like cancer or heart disease and those kinds of, what sets autoimmunity apart? So here's some of the early signs. We have to kind of understand the way the autoimmunity works. Is that, you know, we should be born healthy. Unfortunately, half of our children now are no longer born healthy. But the way that we were designed, that, hey, you start off healthy, right? And then there's something that activates. And that's where we may have small symptoms, or we may have frequent exposures to things. And then we start being what we consider pre-symptomatic. And this is where usually you're diagnosed with, oh, that's right. It's just a common, you know, you'll get over it. It's a common cold. Oh, it's just eczema. It's whatever, skin issues, it's rashes. It'll be fine. Your child will outgrow it. It's just something normal. You know, it's normal to have the seasonal allergies or whatever these, you know, these common disruptions to our day with our health, we're told are normal. Those things are not normal when it comes to optimal health. Yes, they are normal responses that our body makes whenever it's fighting a battle. And so, but it's not normal in a healthy state. And so that's something we have to really shift and change how we are looking at that approach. We are told normal to understand that it's a normal response. It doesn't mean that it's healthy. And that's one of my biggest beefs with the conventional world, is that we are told it's normal. It was normal for my child to have chronic GERD and to not keep anything down. It was normal for him to have chronic ear infections. It was normal for him to have chronic respiratory infections. Oh, he'll just grow out of it. That's just normal. That's just part of being a baby. It's not normal. It's not healthy. So then you have where you have very, very symptomatic. And that's where some of these diseases you start getting some of these labels. You know, whether it's, okay, you finally do get like a GERD label, or an arthritis, or diabetes, or whatever label it's going to be, hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, Hashimoto's. You start getting different labels, and then the way it's addressed is to now fight against what the body's trying to fight to begin with. And then things really start progressing more and more, especially more often than not, the medications, because they're starting to like blocking pathways. We start to get like the heart disease, and we start cutting off the cholesterol production. The body makes the cholesterol as part of that inflammation to protect us, and we need the cholesterol to repair. So even if we get into the state of repair, we cut off our cholesterol production so our body can't even repair. So that kind of thinking doesn't happen here. That's just not what I teach, and that's not the philosophy that I lead. So that's with autoimmunity, is where when those things just keep going on and on and on, there's so much damage, it becomes a collateral damage. So we often hear that, oh, the body's confused. No, it's not confused. We are the ones who are confused as to how our body works. So what the body is doing is trying to protect us, and there's tissue that has been severely compromised, but it's trying to get rid of. It's just, whenever there is any sort of inflammation, there's any sort of a battle going on, there's going to be collateral damage involved. The thing is that our body was designed for that to be very, very short term, because after we get out of that sympathetic state, we go back to that rest, digest, the parasympathetic state, the peaceful state. And a simple way to remember those is that sympathetic starts with an S. It's a very stressful state. We have the parasympathetic state, start with a P. It's a very peaceful state. And so what happens in those two different states? So that's a very simple way to remember those two different sides. So if we are stuck in that sympathetic state, the damage is going to just really start escalating. And yes, the body's going to start getting the tissue that's also involved, that has whatever the contamination, whatever the toxins, whatever the bacteria, whatever it is that is a problem. And so that's how what sets autoimmunity apart from some of these other labels that we get, some of these other diseases that we get. So we have to trace it back, just as we would heart disease, just as we would, type 2 type diabetes. The type 1 is more considered an autoimmune disease. But all of these things, we need to still trace them back to what is under the surface, what is under there in the roots. So what are some of these signs? Because the thing is, if we can catch it earlier, in these earlier stages, in that activation, pre-symptomatic stages, we can stop this so much easier and reverse it so much easier than once you get to that degenerative state. It makes it very, very, very difficult, because then you'll even have the basic building blocks to get into that parasympathetic state to repair, because the repair mechanisms are generally, those are even damaged. So we really want to get to this and address this, the sooner the better. So what are the signs that we look for? It's a lot of signs, and I'm sure you probably know many of these, and you've been told these are normal: fatigue, brain fog, chronic allergies, going to multiple specialists. Whenever you get shifted from this specialist to that specialist and all over the specialist, that's a sign, a warning sign to you that, hey, there's a lot of things going on under the surface. I'm being compartmentalized, and none of these dots are getting connected. Unexplained things, maybe you have unexplained aches and pains. You just can't quite pinpoint it, and nobody can help you figure out what it is the problem. When you have those normal lab results, and but your symptoms are anything but normal, that's a sign that, hey, autoimmunity is something that you need to be looking into. The next one is inconsistent health. Some days are better than other days, where you have, a really, really good day or a good week, and then I don't know what, out of nowhere, it goes back to these unexplained things or these really weird symptoms that you just don't really know where they are. Those are the classic signs that, if you continue on that path, it's going to lead to autoimmunity. So we really want to look at those things and look at them holistically and get with people, providers, functional medicine, functional health, naturopathic, holistic providers that really understand how to put these things into context. Like, what does it mean when you have the fatigue? What is that really telling us about the biochemical thing that's going on under the surface? And I think my screen out there, it didn't stop working. For a minute, I thought I had stopped working. So what are some of the common causes of the autoimmune complications? So we have all these symptoms that we've overlooked. And then what does that lead to? That next stage is chronic infections. We have elevated oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is tied to every disease that you get a label for. There's going to be an oxidative stress component to it. You often see a lot of food sensitivities, exposure to toxins. The toxins are much more damaging because now your body is fighting already and you're adding more fuel to the fire, which leads to more excess inflammation, a weakened microbiome. Our gut health is so vital and so important because that microbiome works synergistically with the rest of our body to get the nutrients it needs. And actually it helps to fight our battle as well. It's a big part of our immune system, our microbiome. We need those bacteria. The bacteria in our gut, in our microbiome, outnumber ours by thousands. We have so many more DNA in our gut that's not ours than we do the entire DNA throughout our body. So it's amazing how we are made and the synergy involves. Whenever we don't have those bugs inside of us battling with us and supporting us, it leads to a lot more complications because now we don't have one of our main armies. You know, it's like, okay, we're going to go to battle, but we only have one little division here instead of having the whole gamut. And then we also get a lot of intestinal permeability with that leaky gut. All of these things are interconnected, and almost all of them, you're going to have some sort of one of these, at least, if not all of them, whenever you're dealing with by the time it reaches that autoimmune type state. So that goes to the reason why. You know, I always ask the reason why. Anyone that works with me and knows me, I'm always asking why. When my child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, my question is like, why? Why did this happen? Tell me what causes the body to do this. Why is it doing this? I spent hours and hours and hours with our physician, you know, having discussions. Tell me why. Okay, we get to figure out why. Tell me why. Why is it that pretty much all diabetics get put on cholesterol medication? Why is the body responding that way? Why are all diabetics have high cholesterol, or nearly all of them? Why? What is the body doing? There's a reason the body is reacting that way. So always ask why. And the reason that's important is because it's more than just these compartmentalized systems in our body. It all works harmoniously together, and it's not just our body. There's also things outside of our body, our environment. So we have that, it's a second component, and that's a lot of times also referred to as like the epigenetics. If you get into the genetics, which we're going to touch on the genetics today, but you have your genetics, our genes, our building blocks. The genes are not necessarily what our destiny is. We can influence those through the epigenetic and all these other factors. So we have power over how our genes express themselves. So we have those two components, and there's also a spiritual component. So when we have all three of those, really make the triangle of health. And so we have to look at that. If we want to reverse something that's chronic, as something that gets labeled as autoimmunity, we can't just be looking at only the leaky gut. Only, oh, your thyroid's out of balance, let's replace your thyroid hormones. We can't just do that. We just can't compartmentalize each of these different systems independent of one another. We have to take a very holistic approach and looking beyond our systems, looking at everything in our environment, from the foods that we eat. We're going to talk about, you know, all these different things that we do. The next thing is this unnecessary categorization, which I've kind of already touched on this many times, and you'll hear this throughout, is that we keep categorizing and compartmentalizing these different systems. And so, oh, well, you've gotten this disease or this label, and that's all we ever focus on. And we're not looking at the bigger picture. We're looking at one little piece of the puzzle and trying to make an entire puzzle out of that without interlocking it with all the other pieces. It's just not going to work. And so we have to stop, you know, putting everything on their own little compartments and only focusing on one little thing. Next, so what does that mean then? So if we understand that, okay, I get it, Selena, that I understand that. So tell me, what is the other option? So the functional approach, you know, I really like the functional approach. It's a naturopathic approach. It's really natural medicine, just with a retermed name. So it's just kind of lame because natural medicine has been around for many, many, many centuries. So now it's finally getting accepted through the functional medicine, functional health approach. But the one thing I do like about the functional is that it does tie in a lot of the science that we know. So it validates the natural medicine. So I really like how natural medicine has been completely validated because of the functional medicine. So, you know, functional medicine, holistic medicine, natural medicine, they're pretty much the same. And I will say there's a caveat to that, is that with a functional medicine, because it is accepted mainstream, you're going to also see conventional methods in many functional practices. So as with anything, you really need to do your research when you're looking for any type of practitioner, whether it's holistic, naturopath, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, functional medicine, whatever it is, you still need to do your research and be a very, very informed informed customer, so to speak. So just make sure that you are empowered on that. But the functional approach is going to look at that root cause and what is going on under the surface. And again, those who are really understand and really practicing what I consider the true natural, functional, holistic approach, that root is not necessarily a single cause. It's like a root of a tree. If you think of the roots of plants, I mean, those roots just go out all over the place. It's not a single root. I mean, it's not like, okay, a carrot, but even a carrot, it has more that when you pull a carrot out, there's still little roots that come out besides that big, you know, the big carrot that we're going to eat that we consider, oh, that's the single root. So when we think of root cause, I really want you to start shifting and thinking of the different things that make up the root. And so when we start doing that, we start looking outside of the box, we start looking and we ask the question, why? Like, we just don't stop until we understand and we can get to, why is this happening? What is it that's going on that's the body is responding in this way? Because whenever we can support it, we understand that, oh, it's fighting this way because, you know what, there's mold here that it's trying to fight all this mold. Okay, let me support it in its battle so that we can win it and get over it. The other thing about the functional approach is that this is personalized. This is not a one-size-fits-all. And that's another one of my biggest beefs is that, you know, whenever my child was diagnosed with diabetes, it's like, oh, everybody gets the same plan. It doesn't matter that my son has never had a soda in his entire life. It doesn't matter that he, generally speaking, doesn't have any kind of other, you know, added sugar type foods. And it's all the exact same protocol. Functional approaches, they're going to be very, very individual. And so the, again, caveat, I guess, to that is that there are some foundations. So there's going to be foundations across the board, no matter what it is that you're going to need to address. So that component, yes, is sort of a one-size-fits-all, that yes, we have to get good foods in our body. We have to make sure we're addressing sleep. There are some foundational things that are going to be the same for everyone. But when it comes to really putting it all together, it's got to be individual. And so, and then a team approach, like I really found that it works best whenever you have a team of practitioners. So that's one of the things that I've made my mission is to connect with practitioners around the world. So I have a pretty big, well, not huge, it's around 70, a network of around 70 different practitioners across the globe that I can know that I can reach out to and connect with, get my clients connected with. So we have a lot of different modalities. I mean, it just ranges from all sorts of different health backgrounds. So we can really get what my clients need, because that's the whole thing, is getting people empowered with the information they need and with the expert that can guide them to where they want to go. Getting help from somebody. When we are falling off a cliff, now is not the time to go to the Dollar Tree and get a Dollar Tree rope. We need the best person to get us off of that cliff. And so it's another thing with the functional approach. It's a mentorship. And that's another reason why I really like the natural medicine model, is that this is about teaching somebody how they can have the power, how they can do what they need to do. So they don't need me. They don't need to run to the doctor and go get a pill every time something happens. They know what to do. They know how to stay in good health. So the only reason they would really need to go see a medical provider is because of these tragic accidents, these, you know, acute type situations, which is another thing that our current model is built on, the acute care. You can't take an acute care model and apply it to chronic health situations. And that's what we have done. And that's why our medical system is failing, is because we have this acute situation. We are amazing. We have amazing technology and advances in acute care situations and emergent situations. And it's very, very needed. And it's a wonderful thing. But that's not what's needed when we have these chronic issues that have been going on for years and decades and multiple generations. Acute care model doesn't work. So the functional approach is more of a, it's going to look at the entire history. It's going to look at all the pieces. It's not going to, you can look at it as this acute situation. And so it helps us to really understand, like I said earlier, that the disease is not about a disease. It's not about diagnosing. It's about, why is your body manifesting these symptoms? Why is your body responding this way? How can we support it in that battle? Because naturally, because it's trying to fight. And so let's help it win the battle. Okay. The last thing here, and this is the most important, well, the last thing for this section, not the last thing I'm going to talk about by far, is we have to shift our mindset. This is really where it starts, is shifting from I can't do this to I can do this. Yes, you can. I believe in you. And I truly mean that when I say this right now, that I believe in you and I believe that you can do this, because I know what it's like to feel and go be heard like, oh, you've got an autoimmunity, there's nothing you can do about it. That's not true. Every single autoimmune disease that I know of has been reversed except for type 1 diabetes. And there's some people that I've talked to that have reversed that. So I've not confirmed the type 1, but we have to just get to the root cause. We just have the underlying root issues. And so you can do this. Please don't stop that fight. You know, you can do this. That's one of the most important things. And there's so many ways that we can do this, is by addressing some of the things that we've already talked about. Addressing that inflammation. Remember that graph where the response and where it leads to the inflammation, we can start addressing that, supporting that. Dietary changes, the foods that we eat are so vital. That's the fuel that our body is using to fight its battle. Just as we would not put water in our gas tanks of our cars and expect it to run really well and run a race, we've got to make sure our body is getting a good fuel. We've got to heal the gut. If our car had a leaky valves or leaky fuel line, it's not going to run very well. So we have to make sure the same thing with our bodies. Supplementation, I should have put on the very end because I'm not a big fan of supplementation. The thing about supplementation, why I do still have it on here, is because it's very, very important to understand supplementation means that we are supporting what's missing. Supplementation is not the first go-to. Only in certain situations when there is more of an acute situation where we do need to get things very urgently, but we need to address it first through other methods, and then we support where, okay, we need a little extra support here, but we have a really good solid foundation. So supplementation is at the bottom of the list. Detoxification, supporting the detox pathways. And this is something else that's very, very important and very, very critical to understand, is that when it comes to detox, we have to think of it like this. If we had a toilet that was overflowed, we're not going to keep using it until that system is working. So if our detox system is backed up and not working well, trying to detox a detox system that's backed up, guess what's going to happen? It's going to recirculate in our body, just like it would recirculate throughout our entire house and make a huge mess in your bathroom if you tried flushing a toilet that was already overflowing and at overflow. So detox, to be careful with on that, and to make sure you are navigating that very carefully in these chronic situations. And you've got an expert that is going to help you and understand that. I've seen so many go through some of these detoxes and it makes things worse. And then especially when you add into some of the genetic components. And with the genetics, there's two sides to the genetics. And I'm just going to try to briefly touch on this, is that we have our genetic SNPs. Those just predispose us to having challenges. That we may have speed bumps. We may have to navigate things differently. But then we also have these SNPs that we don't have SNPs. We have our genes, and these genes are perfectly fine. But guess what? Our environment in our life and our experiences can make it so that those genes and those pathways are expressing as if they did have a SNP. So while the genes is really, really important, and I'm a huge fan of knowing, hey, what is the genetic makeup? Where do we happen to have that? We've got to be careful, because we know that, hey, they've got MTRR, the CBS SNP, MTHFR, BHMT, VHFR, they've got, these different SNPs. Oh, we got to navigate this probably a little bit differently than somebody who didn't have it, because they're already compromised. On top of, they're very susceptible to little things, making that pathway a little bit more backed up. So the genes, I think, is a really, really good, it's a really good tool. It's just one tool, one piece to the puzzle. So just something to note on that. Physical activity. This one here, something that you can do is to change the physical activity so that it supports healing. And less is often best when it comes to chronic health situations. And here's why. Remember how we talked about that sympathetic, parasympathetic state? When we have very, very rigorous type exercise, that's going to shift us more towards that sympathetic state and put our body more towards that, if not in that state. If we are already fighting battles, we don't need anything else to put us there. We don't need to be sedentary. I'm not saying to just, okay, do nothing, but we got to be careful that we are not doing too much. And what may be too much, our threshold may be much lower than what many think or what you may think. So that's something to really look at and to address this physical activity. Infections, looking, are there ways that we are getting exposed? Is there being more fuel put on our fire because of infections, bacteria, and toxins? Stress management. This one here is my biggest one. Stress management is pretty much the game changer. It's non-negotiable if you want to reverse and really overcome and win that battle against autoimmunity. And it goes back to that sympathetic state. Stress is going to put us in that sympathetic state, and we cannot heal if we have stress. The stress comes in the entire gamut, from emotional stresses, from stress at work, from stress with our food, stress because we are sick, toxic relationships, toxins, chemicals, the environment, all sorts of things can be stressful for our bodies. So it's in past traumas, childhood traumas. And also something else to consider is trauma that your mother went through, especially when she was pregnant with you. The things that the mothers go through, the traumas inside the moms transfer to the children, because you know what? That's the environment that we develop in. Just as if we are in a toxic world, we are surrounded by all sorts of toxic chemicals in our house, it's going to have an effect on our body. The same thing happens as we are in the womb and developing in our mothers. If we're surrounded, because she has a lot of toxic things going on in her life, even emotional, whatever it is, any sort of traumas, part of that is going to influence our health. So we don't dismiss those things. And if you're having a lot of difficulty getting to what is your root, what is your root composed of, that's an avenue to also consider to look at too, which leads to relaxation techniques and how we can shift to that parasympathetic state. So whether it's meditation, whether it's, going out and playing games, whether it's, I'm just going to go read a book. It's the self-care. We have to put self-care number one. Self-care and stress, those two things are non-negotiable when we are combating autoimmunity. There's so many other things. These are the main things, but especially that self-care and stress management. So we're going to talk about a little bit more what's going on underneath the surface and what you can do underneath the surface, some of the clues that you can get from that. Inflammation pretty much takes the spotlight here. That inflammation just falls in that path that we talked in the beginning, where we talked about that response, and it leads to the inflammation. That inflammation is basically our body's inside airbags going off, trying to protect things. So what can we do about inflammation, and where does inflammation come from? Because we think about, okay, it used to be, like when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, inflammation, we had arthritis, or we had carditis, gastritis, the heart disease, and we thought this was just for older people, but all of these itises that we have these labels for is basically the body's immune system is on fire. So there's a huge fire here going on. That airbag isn't quite so, cushiony or so, whatever, like our car. It's fire that happens here. The body it's inflamed. So it leads to chronic immunity. And so what can we do about that? Well, it goes to our guts. When we look at the inflammation, we ask why, and what does our body need to put that inflammation, to whatever that inflammation is fighting, what does it mean? It starts in our gut. We have to go to our gut. Just like we go to the gas in our gas tank, we got to first make sure our car has good gas. We're going to, if it's not running, we're going to say, well, does it have gas in it? If it doesn't have gas, then yeah, it doesn't matter if we have a brand new engine and new spark plugs and all that other stuff. We got to have gas and good fuel in the system, and our fuel system working well. So there's the 4 R's. There's some that have 5, but there's basically the 4. Remove, replace, reinoculate, and repair. And they kind of really all work together. Sometimes you do them in a little bit different order, but generally speaking, it kind of goes like this. You got to first remove the fuel from the fire. So if you've got a house on fire, we got to stop pouring gas on it first, okay? So we need to look at what are the things that we need to remove. The food allergies, food sensitivities, because making sure we're putting in foods in our body that our body needs, that's not causing more reaction. And so just because a food is healthy and good for you doesn't mean that, hey, maybe for you, it doesn't work for you. Or for me, I can't eat that. It's a healthy food, but it's not what your body needs right now, and it's not working for you. So listen to your body and try not to get stuck with, oh, I'm on this diet protocol and I got SIBO, so I did this SIBO diet. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do, right? Or this low FODMAP diet, or the paleo, or the autoimmune paleo, whatever. But when I eat this particular food, I always break out and get rashes. But that's what I'm supposed to eat because it's in that diet. No, listen to your body. So there's different ways that you can figure those things out. Sometimes it's very, very difficult. If you've been doing this a long time, then I would definitely suggest get working with somebody. The sooner you do it, the sooner you can stop the damage from happening. The longer you wait, there's going to still be more internal damage. So the easiest way is elimination diets. Taking the foods out of your diet, don't eat them, and then wait 3 to 6 months. I find 6 months is the biggest. I've seen the most response in 6 months. When I've seen people who've done it, we've done it for a month or 6 weeks, it usually comes up coming back. Like they get better, but then it comes back. It's better. Like they just think, oh, it wasn't that. You wait the 6 months. That gives more time for if there's antibodies going on in there. And another thing with this food sensitivity testing is that a lot of them are what they're testing is these antigens to the different foods, but really, the more that we learn about it is that we should probably be looking more at the antibodies our body is making towards those foods. In these chronic health situations, we're going to see a lot of these food antigens in the bloodstream because we have that leaky gut component, that intestinal permeability. And so sometimes those food tests are not necessarily reliable. I have seen really good results with them, but I've also seen where, they weren't very helpful. I've seen both sides to it. So you just got to look at and see, what is it that I need? What works for me? Is this something that I need to explore? Is this something that could maybe potentially be helpful for me? The elimination diets, one thing I want to also say about that is that some of the foods can have a delayed reaction. So you can have a food, especially there's a lot of proteins, that could take like a day or so before they finally have the reaction, before your body finally reacts to it. So you think, well, I had that yesterday and today, now I feel, I had a reaction today, and you don't start putting that, oh, maybe it was the food from yesterday. Another thing with that is histamines. One thing to look at, if you say, you know what, I had this meal today and I saved that exact meal for leftovers tomorrow, and the second day, oh my goodness, I reacted bad. The red flag that would go off is, oh, I need to be looking, do I have problems with histamines? My DAO pathways, are they working well? What's going on here? So those are some clues. That's one of the biggest clues for histamines that you can do without doing any kind of testing, is that you could have the exact same meal and eat it the next day or 2 days later, and it's like, oh my goodness, I do not do well with leftovers. Histamines is something that would definitely be on the horizon that I would be looking into. Avoid common irritants. There's some of the common things, gluten, alcohol, caffeine, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, the NSAIDs. Those kinds of things put a lot of extra burden on our body that it has to now deal with and clear out. And it all goes through that detox pathway. When we talk about that detox, if our toilet's clogged, we don't want to put any more stuff into it. Well, our liver, which is the main detox organ, the alcohol has to go through there. The caffeine has to go through there. These drugs have to go through there. So if we're already fighting a battle and are having a really difficult time in those detox pathways, this is a fuel that we are adding to the fire. So be very, very careful and be very selective as to whether or not you want to take those or not. Just be aware of that. Next, we have to look at and remove any sort of bacteria, yeast, infections, mold, parasites. Again, it goes back to the fuel of the fire. It's going to be difficult for our body to repair if we still have mold issues that we're dealing with, and we have yeast, chronic yeast infections. Yeast, I just did one of these here a couple weeks ago on Candida. Candida is in like 97 to 100% of cancer cells. They've known this since the early 1900s. Over 100 years. It was, I think, 1913 is whenever this was discovered, and that cancer, pretty much 97 to 98% of it, yeast, Candida. So we got to be looking at all these things and removing those things if we want to repair. Heavy metals. Okay, so heavy metals are all around us. We have them in our vaccines. We have them in our mouth. We have them in our water. Brushing your teeth. One of the signs you can know on your teeth. If you get sick when you brush your teeth and you have mercury fillings, you might want to look into that more about what you can do with those mercury fillings. Because if your body is like, uh-oh, it's getting nauseous from the fumes of brushing your teeth. So just something to note on, something that you can to be aware of, and to look for a dentist that understands the right way and utilizes the right way to remove those things. Otherwise, you can actually cause a lot of problems if you're not with a dentist who really gets on what you do to remove those kind of fillings. Environmental toxins, oh my goodness, they are all around us. It seems like we just can't get away from them. And now we have things like 5G coming in, which is going to be devastating. I'm just really quite concerned for our health, because every time we have these advances in our technology, we have these chronic epidemics of illnesses. So if you really want to get into to see some things that are very, very eye-opening, start looking at some of the history of some of these different, widespread epidemic flus and these, illnesses that happen right around the time we have these rollouts of these different technology. Anyway, environmental toxins, what can we do about that? Like Wi-Fi, everything's Wi-Fi, everything's wireless. So, there's these smart meters, all of those kinds of things are putting extra burden on our body. It's going to change things, the permeability, the way things can communicate, the communication in our body. Just if you had interference, like, with different radios, like, they're static on the TV, like the old TVs, if you're old enough to remember, like the old TVs with the rabbit ears, we had to like get things adjusted right, to get the right signals. Well, guess what happens to our body? Those waves go through our bodies. We have all this stuff going through our body. Our body now has to try to navigate all that noise and all that stuff and still do that in promoting health. Meanwhile, we're throwing more and more at it. So environmental toxins are a big one, and it's very, very difficult to get to avoid them. Do the best you can, and I'm just a huge advocate of freedom and choice, and to not mandate a lot of these things such as smart meters and those kinds of things, but we won't go there today. And then we have to remove stress. So you can remove all of those things that I just talked about, but if you still have stress, you are still going to be stuck in that sympathetic state. The stress management is non-negotiable, especially if you are to the state where you have been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. You've got to get the stress. You have to get to the mindfulness, and get to that self-care is number one priority. If you need help with that, reach out to me. I've got a lot of different resources for that. I try to share a lot of links on my website, on my Facebook page and my Facebook group of different ways to do that, because I know we all have different things that make it help our stress. Like, I don't do meditation. Meditation does not work for me. It just doesn't, but there's other things that I can do that are very helpful. I mean, I guess, I was talking with somebody the other day, and they're like, oh, actually you do meditate. Like, there's some music that I can listen to. There's a certain music, and I will share just my favorite music. And that one I can just relax. And when I listen to that music, I completely just relax. And so maybe that's meditation. It's not what I think of meditation. I think is, I don't know, maybe more intentional, but someone did tell me they did it. Oh, you are meditating. That's meditation. Well, if that's meditation, yes, I love it. And I can do that. But whatever it is for you. So whatever is going to help you to relax and to just have joy, fun, where you are getting that stress, inner stress out. And to make sure you're looking at deeper issues, if there's any other, buried trauma. Sometimes there's hidden trauma that we didn't even realize we had that's keeping our body in that fight or flight mode. So stress management is, of all of these things, that one has to be, it's a non-negotiable one on this. Replacement, and as you see, this is also number one. I mean, we kind of have to remove and replace. If we take things away and we don't put something in its place, guess what's going to happen? More than likely, this stuff it's going to just kind of keep seeping back in, the stuff we just took away. So we have to replace. We have to kind of, juggle all of these things, and really all four of these, we got to kind of juggle them and work in harmony. And, it's not like, oh, okay, we do this, and now we're going to do this one. They kind of work intertwined together. But these first two really do go hand in hand. So we're going to replace with quality foods. We're going to, change what we're eating. We're going to put good foods into our body. If we can grow them, fantastic. I realize not everybody can grow their own foods. I cannot grow our own foods. We live in East Texas. We have 3 growing seasons, but guess what? We're in East Texas. That's the deep, piney woods. I had no idea when we moved to East Texas, I was going into a pine forest. There are so many trees. And so where we happen to live, we are literally surrounded by pine trees, really tall pine trees. So we get about 3 to 4 hours of sun a day. And it's that, straight up sun. Well, only when the sun is over. So we have pine trees on the south, or I'm sorry, on the east and west, and then we have a neighbor on the south. But that fortunately that we have that neighbor there. Otherwise, we would probably not get any sun because we would still get shade from the north side of those trees on the south of us. But and then all around the north of us is all trees. But we can't really grow much. I did get a garden tower, or tower garden. It's the one that has the worm composting one, which I love. And the very top layer of it, I was able to grow amazing tomatoes this year. So I think we got it up high enough off the ground that it was able to get a little bit more sun, because by the time the shade, it just got enough, before the shade actually completely hit the ground on these two trees in the east and west. The best tomatoes I've ever had. So I realized that, okay, it's not so easy just go grow your own foods. I get that. If you can, please, do whatever you can. Even if it is, you can only grow like we can, just our tomatoes. At least there's something that you can do to help. Buy quality foods. We get a lot of our foods from Azure Standard. And again, I have a link on that on my website of that. It's azurestandard.com. And they're in most of the US. They may not be on the East Coast yet. They come from Oregon, and we get fresh food from them every 4 weeks. There's a semi truck that comes, and you just basically get it off the back of the semi truck. It's a stop. They come, and there's a group of us, and they have your own, whatever you order is in your box. But you've got to be there at that particular time, because they're going to be there for about 15 minutes. They unload it, you take it, and you go. But the prices are amazing. The quality is amazing. It's organic. So there's other options besides that. So whatever you can do to get quality fuel in your body. Support the digestion. So putting that fuel in, if our body can't use it, again, it's kind of wasteful. So we got to figure out, where does our body need digestive support? Does it need digestive enzymes? Do I need to take stomach, the HCl with pepsin? What is it do I need to do to support digestion? I need to take some probiotics to help my body with that whole synergy. It just depends. So you need to have that digestive support. And then the nutrients, making sure that we have enough nutrients, which goes to, I've got a site here, I'm not sure which slide I have it on, but I've got it on one of these slides coming up, is nutritiondata.self.com. Has a really, really good way to track that and to see what your nutrients are. And then, again, it goes back to that stress, that flip side of it, laughter, fun, and joy. We have to be having fun again. When was the last time you laughed so hard that you cried or peed your pants? That kind of laughter. We need to have that on a regular basis. When we look at our children, there was a post the other day that I just absolutely love, that it said, we spend the first year of our life having fun, doing all this great stuff. Then from like 20 to like 70, we work jobs that we hate. We can't sleep, we're sick, this and that and the other, blah, blah, blah. Get to 70, we regret everything. We can't do nothing because we're so sick, and we just can't wait to die. And it's like, so really it was only these first few years of our life that we actually truly lived. Yet we spend all this time here on the earth where it's just miserable. So we need to stop doing that. We need to have laughter, fun, and joy. This is a huge thing, because that's going to help put us in that parasympathetic state. When we are laughing, when we are having fun, guess what? Our body's not running away from a lion. It's having some fun. So it's going to help put us into that parasympathetic state. So that's a key thing. Reinoculate. We got to help put back those bacteria, those probiotics, getting our body the rest of the battle that, there's not just our immune system. Our immune system has warriors inside of us. That microbiome is a huge army that we have built into us. So we got to really make sure that we are supporting that with quality fuel foods, because they're going to eat what we eat. So putting that, the good gas in the car isn't just for us, it's for the army that we're trying to feed inside of us. And so we are only eating very, very restricted foods. And this goes back to the diets. I'm not really a big fan of these, all these diets for this disease or whatever label you get, because then we get on these long terms, we're not healing because we're really not addressing the entire issues. Well, when we are limited on the foods that we eat, especially long term, then guess what? We're only certain bugs. We're going to be limited on the bugs, and we got to have diversity in our microbiome to overcome things like autoimmunity. So we need a really wide variety of the army men there. We need the Navy. We need the Marines. We need I said the Army, Navy, Marines. There's another one, Air Force. So we need all these different ones. We don't just need the infantrymen from the Army. We need everything. So a variety of foods to help feed the bacteria we're eating. So if we're taking probiotics and we're not giving them the food, guess what? We're just really kind of ingesting a lot of money and it's going in one end and out the other. It's not really doing us a whole lot of good. So we got to make sure we are feeding them so that they can flourish. The goal is to create an environment so these bacteria can flourish. We can throw grass seed on a desert all day long and it's not going to grow, right? So if we want this beautiful, beautiful lawn, this wonderful landscape, and all this great, place, this paradise, then we have to nurture it and we have to feed it. And it takes looking at the soil, the water, the sun, all the different elements, not just throwing grass seed out there and it's gonna, turn that desert into this beautiful place. So the same with our GI tract is that we've got to feed so that we are going to support the good bugs. And if we need to replace them with probiotics, then we replace them with probiotics. Generally speaking, at short term, there are some situations where you may need long-term support on those things, like with the FUT2 genes that, you can't really support the bifidobacterium. So you may need to be taking bifidobacterium. Prebiotics, you're just making sure we are getting the bugs in there. And again, laughter, joy, and fun. If we are stressful, that diverts the blood flow from our GI tract. Well, guess what happens then? It makes it more difficult to digest foods. It's going to make it much more difficult for that bacteria to thrive. And so we have to be having fun. We have to have laughter and doing things. That self-care is so important at this stage as well. So the probiotics, I already kind of talked about that, the probiotics, and looking at those, there's not really one size fits all. One thing to note is the FUT2, to be looking at, okay, do I have problems with not supporting the bifidobacteria, my body not able to really support those? I'm a pretty big fan currently of stool testing. I've seen some different conflicting tests or studies on those, so my opinion may change in the future, but at this point in time, in 2008, the end of 2018, I'm currently a pretty big fan of stool studies. I really like the GI map for looking at, trying to find, okay, with the parasites and looking at the pathogens and the bad guys. But if we really want to look at the microbiome, I like the Genova GI effects. There's another one, I think, at Ubiome or Biome or something. I've looked at those. I haven't looked in depth on them. They look really interesting, like they've got a lot of information. But really it comes down to looking at the entire picture. So getting that information on the microbiome from like Genova or one of these other lab companies is great. But I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, okay, this is what you need to take based solely on that. I would look at the entire picture as to what's going on, as to what it is that you may be needing right now. Because there's different bacteria that are needed for different processes. And we can see that, oh, you know what, you've got a problem here. You may need this, more support of this. Or you know what, you've got a big problem with histamines. Probably want to avoid a couple of these different lactobacillus probiotics, because they tend to really aggravate histamine issues. So you really need to look at the entire picture on that. I really don't want to make a big blanket statement because you're, oh, I've got SIBO, I need to go take this probiotic. Next is repair. So we have to repair. Generally speaking, this one's going to happen last. Sometimes we have to kind of juggle these things in between. Oops. And so the repairing, what do we do to repair? That goes back to, kind of circles back around to these other things. We have to make sure that we are providing the right kinds of foods. That self-care has to be number one. The activity, making sure we're not pushing ourselves too soon. So even though maybe it looks healed on the outside, we really need to go a little bit long, make sure that it's healed on the inside. It's like you have a burn, and that burn, it hurts those first few days really, really bad. As soon as it stops hurting, has it healed? No, you still have this huge blister, right? So we got to wait for that to completely heal, which can take a while. So even though, it doesn't hurt anymore, and maybe it actually looks semi-okay, if we continue to really use these things vigorously, then we can damage them even more because they're really still in that tender state. So the repairing, just making sure that we are providing really good quality, a variety of foods, variety of nutrients, getting the rainbow every day. It's really more about eating real foods, whole foods, variety of fresh and raw foods, than it is about, oh, you need to be on this diet or that diet. Don't eat meat, eat meat, whatever it happens to be. Some people thrive as a vegan. Some people, they just do not do well with that. So whatever works for you, and understanding what are your genetic predispositions. Do you have some genes where, I don't really convert the vitamin A, beta carotene, that conversion process doesn't work so well. So my body may not do so well on strictly vegan, vegetarian. I've got to be careful on that. Maybe I need to have support if I'm going to do that. So just making sure that you're looking at the entire picture for the repair state. which leads to supplements. So what do we do on that? Because the supplements are kind of the end of the equation. Some people put this in that 4 R's, like that they'll have like the supplementation. I'm, again, not a huge fan of supplementing unless we absolutely need it, because there's so many things in our body. There's so many processes going on that, you know what, we can do all these great tests. And I love the tests. There's great information, but really, you know, there's things that we still don't know. And sometimes we just have to take a really, really good educated guess on that. And so here's the main supplements you're going to see the most of when it comes to autoimmunity. Now, note, I'm not saying we're not going to get these supplements, okay? I'm going to show you why these are the most common and why these are so vital that you make sure that you're looking at your diet and you're getting at least plenty of these, at least in your diet. The magnesium, glutathione, vitamin D, zinc, the omega-3s. Glutathione you generally don't see necessarily in your diet, but it's very, very important. It's a supplement you're going to see quite a bit recommended with some of these autoimmunity. And let me touch on a few of these as to why this happens. So for any of you that love biochemistry, you probably already know all this, but this is what really got me into functional medicine, was this right here. This stuff I love. So I've only got, I think, 1 or 2 slides, and I'm going to get deep into it because I can get really deep. But I want you to focus on the blue dots. This here is your folate, methionine, and transsulfuration pathway. You may have heard of MTHFR. That's down where that yellow dot is. I just noted this because if of any of these genes, most people, if they've heard of any, they probably have heard of MTHFR. And this is why MTHFR is, you hear of it. So these 3 cycles kind of work together. On that far left, where that MTHFR is, you see the kind of like the circle is sort of is, that's the folate cycle. And then we have that big circle in the middle, or they're more oval, that's methionine. And then all those things out the bottom, that's your transsulfuration. Okay, so these 3 cycles pretty much work like are in harmony, like little spokes on a wheel. They all kind of have to be turning together and turning. And you see, they even have inside of them, they have other little cycles that all these wheels need to be turning. If any wheel stops, every cycle is affected in some way. And it just depends on how long it goes on as to the intensity of the damage and how much the symptoms are going to manifest. But why, back to the vitamins, you see all the blue dots. Those are just zinc and magnesium. Those are where they are needed for those particular genes, those biochemical processes in those genes to work. If we don't have zinc and magnesium, guess what? Every single one of those places, and this is a condensed version, mind you, they're not going to work well. And so that's why you see zinc and magnesium as, oh, you need to have more zinc, you need to go take a magnesium supplement, because we know that down here at the bottom, that whole step at the bottom, that transsulfuration pathway is your detox pathway. And that very bottom circle where you have those 2 blue dots, and you see that kind of oval, that's your glutathione recycling. So that glutathione goes around and gets recycled, and it takes out the toxins. So if we don't have things upstream here, like with that MTHFR over there, you need zinc for that MTHFR to work, the B to get over there. If you don't have that stuff, guess what? You're not going to circle around that homocysteine to go down there to the glutathione. So that's why where the vitamins and supplements come in, and why we see them recommended so much. But the key is to first look into your diet, okay? So here's a simpler, even more simple, and it kind of illustrates more the circle better of see how these things are all, and this goes also into your neurotransmitters. So if you've got things that are involved with neurotransmitters, ADHD, autism, you're going to see these things over on this other side. But this just kind of shows you how these circles, how they all interrelate, and they all need to be just kind of working together, which is another more simplified illustration. And you see over the bottom left, that's your glutathione, that's your detox, that's the toilet over there, getting rid of stuff. And it's not just toxins that we think, oh, these chemicals are hormones. Our body has to detox our hormones. So, you know, our female hormones, our neurotransmitters, we have a lot of anxiety, we have a lot of stress, that adrenaline, cortisol, all that stuff is tied to that glutathione pathway at some point. So that's where it may not be that you're exposed to chemical toxins. You're like, yeah, I don't have any kind of chemical cleaners. All my stuff is natural. But there's other ways that our body still has to detox. So that's all I'll say about the pathway. So that's why. So the maintenance stage, a whole foods diet, making sure that we are eating a variety of foods. And this is where, yes, this is where I have it. So this is a nutritiondataself.com. I love this site. It's free. And you can track what you're eating. So you can type in your foods, and then you get this amazing chart when you analyze, and you can put in just like, this was just one food. I think this was avocado, I don't remember which one I pulled up. I'm pretty sure this is avocado. If you can put in like, okay, I might have the meal, or you can make a recipe, and then you can put, you know, analyze, and it'll tell you the breakdown of the types of sugars that you're getting. micronutrients. So you can see, okay, the folate from food, from folic acid, the calcium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, and this is only half the page. It gets more. You can get more to the fatty acids and the proteins, but it wouldn't all fit on my screen where you could actually read it. So I just did part of the screenshot. But you can look and see, oh, you know what? If this was, let's say, my daily intake, let's say this is my meals. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty low here on zinc. I'm getting like maybe 10% of my zinc. And so I probably need to supplement or figure out how can I boost it up first. Is there any other foods I can do in my diet? So this is how I like to use this to see with my clients to say, okay, let's look at what are you really taking? Like, you know, that you think that you're getting, you know, whatever foods. Oh, look, you are getting so much, you know, folate or whatever. Like, you don't really need to supplement with folate in your diet. We need to figure out why that folate pathway is not working. Or, yeah, well, before you supplement, why don't we try, you know, getting the foundation? Because this is the foundation. The body doesn't use supplements like it does the things in the food. There's so many other constituents in the food that work synergistically with the vitamins and minerals, the phytochemicals, the antioxidants, all those kinds of things work together in harmony. You cannot repackage it in a pill. So we get so much more out of the whole foods that than we can with the pills. There's a lot, we can get a lot of good things out of supplements, but just know we got to have a good foundation. So this is a great way to look and see, what is my foundation? Like, where am I, you know, running deficient just from my diet alone? You know, where do I need to maybe bump some things up? Maybe it's just, oh, I can maybe switch out a few foods and I can really make a huge difference in transforming my health. So this is a great free tool that I really, really like. Sorry about that. So next, detox your toxins. So like I said, this goes back to getting the fuel out of the fire. So, you know, looking at ways that you can shift and change, you know, your cleaning products in your home, or the household products that you have, air purifiers, water filters, all those different things, you know, slowly, you know, the sooner the better, obviously, but sometimes, you know, we can only do baby steps, but try to remove some of the fuel from the fire on that. And then making sure, again, to detox the toxins in our body, we have to go back to proper nutrition, adequate hydration. And this is where I fail miserably, I'll admit. I have a really hard time drinking. I love water. I don't have a problem with water, but I just have a hard time drinking enough water. Fasting is an amazing powers at detoxing. I have become a huge fan of the prolonged fasting mimicking diet. If you want more information on that, get on my Facebook page. I think my website too. Yes, there's a link actually to my store on the website. And I can get you a discount code. I have seen amazing transformations on this 5-day mimicking fast. Fasting helps to reset our body. It kind of gives us a metabolic reset. I don't advocate long-term fasting. We got to be careful. You can't just fast forever. And doing it too frequently, we got to make sure that our body can get back into that repair state. Sweating is another great way to detox. That's how our body can get rid of, you know, getting that temperature level up helps to kill off a lot of bacteria, but it also helps for our body to detox. So saunas are a great way. And Sauna Space is the latest sauna that I came across. Another practitioner introduced that to me, which is the only one that I know of that's 100% no EMF from that sauna. And again, that one's actually on my site as well. But yes, it's amazing. You know, that's another way we can detox and help support our body in healing. Stress management. So I know I've talked about this many times, and hopefully you've got it by now. So I'm going to go really quick over this. I'm not going to repeat a whole lot, but no, this is the foundation. This is pretty much the game changer, and this can really hold people back. So there's just so many different ways that we can utilize self-care, whether it's deep breathing. Like I do like deep breathing. Exercise. Some people exercise. It helps to de-stress them. You know, just being creative, art, you know, whatever it is that helps to bring a smile to your face. You know what, if I could do nothing else but this, I would have so much fun. This would just bring so much joy to my life. That's, you know, getting through that. So whatever we need to do that works for you, and identifying your, you know, the pieces for your puzzle that help you to de-stress and to help, you know, bring about peace and harmony and joy. And so what are some action steps? Because, you know, this is all great information. And so what can you guys actually do? Like, what can you take this and how can you guys implement this? Because this is what it's really about, right? Is we want to combat it and overcome it. So here's what we can do. These are the main ways that you're going to win that fight against autoimmunity, okay? cutting out these foods such as grains, dairy, legumes, nightshades, and processed foods. They are the grains. The reason the grains are so important, why they are tied with the autoimmunity, is because they aggravate that leaky gut situation. Whenever we have autoimmunity, things are getting through the barrier that shouldn't be there. That immune system has been fighting that battle in the GI tract so long, things have broken through. And so we've got to eliminate things that are going to activate those junctions opening. So the zonulin, you may have heard about zonulin and gluten and celiac and those kinds of things. Well, the gluten activates the zonulin receptor. So it activates the zonulin production. So the zonulin will open up the tight junctions. And why? So my question was forever, why does it do that? Because the zonulin doesn't just appear out of nowhere, right? There's a reason why our body's designed that way. Why is it doing that? So it opens the tight junctions to bring in more fluid for it to digest, break down the gluten. So what happens when they just completely stay open too long? Then these doors are now open. What happens when we just leave our door? Like, we have doors in our homes. We need a door to go in and out of our house. We don't go in and out through the windows. But if we just leave our doors open all the time, what's going to happen? Well, things are probably going to come in here that we don't want in our house. And if you're in East Texas, they're going to be rather large bugs. You know, we don't have small bugs here in East Texas. And then you're going to have things like scorpions in your house here in East Texas or snakes. And so, you know, that's why the zonulin connection and why it's tied to the grains is because that's the body's natural way. That's kind of the natural defense of that. So we've got to cut these things out to stop that fire. Changing our diet to where we're eating foods it's easy for our body to digest. Okay, so whatever that happens to be. Looking at an elimination diet, you know, if you've not tried one of those, that's a great place to start. Making sure that you're staying hydrated adequately and ample hydration, because in order for us to get things out, to flush it out, we have to be putting things in. So just like our toilet, you know, as our toilet works, we don't just put stuff in the toilet and it just magically disappears. We have to flush it. Things have to go through. We still have to have water that goes through that system. We just need that system to be working. So if we are not putting water into our system, into our bodies, then we cannot flush things out of our bodies. So just remember that toilet. And I don't wish I had a better example, but maybe that one's good enough that you'll remember it. So making sure we're eating enough fiber. This is another thing that I've noticed quite a bit is that I hear a lot is, oh, I eat all this fiber, this really good foods, and it makes it worse. That's a huge clue that your microbiome is very imbalanced. And there's some things that you need to address, different things. So you really need to look at that whole bigger picture. It's really time to get a mentor, someone to help guide you through that. If you're eating really, really good whole foods and that fiber is causing problems, get with somebody who can help you with that. And you can always reach out to me on that. Avoid things that are unnecessary. Things like the antibiotics are going to completely wipe everything out. Practice deep breathing. That deep breathing helps to bring the blood flow where we need it to go. It helps to put us in that parasympathetic state. It helps to support the GI tract by getting blood flow to the GI tract to do its thing. Adopt good hygiene practices, which probably seems a no-brainer. Exercise regularly and appropriately. So we don't want the sedentary, but we don't necessarily need to go out and be running marathons. Like if you're dealing with autoimmunity, it needs to be the right amount of exercise for you. And then connecting with others, you know, getting with others. We need to have community. We were meant to be in community and to have, you know, support from one another. We've gotten to where we're just so isolated in so many ways, and it's really affecting our health. So connecting with others, especially others who are going to be supportive of your journey and help guide you on that journey, is just so priceless. Getting enough sleep, again, it goes back to that parasympathetic state and allowing our body to repair itself. And you know what, if we're tired, rest whenever you need to rest. If you think, you know what, I feel like I need to rest right now, then you need to listen to your body and to rest. The more that we support our body in that way, then the more that we are supporting the healing system and to win that battle against autoimmunity. And the next is to find a hobby that we love. And this goes back to that stress management. I know you guys are thinking, oh, having fun. Yes, we got to have fun. We got to be doing back to that, like we were kids, that illustration. I should have put it in the presentation because it just was perfect. That we've got to get back to being a child again. If we want to have this vital energy as children, then we need to start acting like children, you know, in many, many ways. So, you know, start having fun again. And lastly, again, do whatever it is to make you feel happy. This happiness is, I just cannot reiterate this and then emphasize this enough. This is just at the core, it's the foundation, it's at the root of all of our health issues. We have to get back to being a child and having fun and promoting that, that longevity. So taking your health to the next level, what can you do? You know, what are some ways that you can figure all these things out? Do a thorough history. If you're trying to really navigate, say, what are some of my triggers? How do I know what my triggers were? How do I know what battle my body is fighting? You start with a thorough history. When was the last time you felt well? When was the last time that, you know what, health was the last thing on my mind? Go back to that time. Look at the entire picture. Look at everything that's affecting your health, not just, focusing on the foods, or just focusing on this diagnosis or that. Look at everything. Look at the entire picture. It goes back to that triad, to your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, the environmental health. All of those things look together. And then, you know, you might need testing. Maybe you need to go beyond just looking at the symptoms and those things. Maybe there's some testing which you maybe need to look into and determine, okay, you know what? I need to look at some testing. Note on that, there are so many clues that you can get from the general blood chemistry panels that our normal doctors order, like the CBC, CMP. There's so many clues that they're not seeing in those. Identify opportunities of supporting your body's innate healing system. Remember, this immune battle is our body trying to keep us alive. It's fighting for us. So let's find ways to support that. And then become empowered. Find a strategy to regain your health and vitality. So how can you do that? I've got this great guide that you guys can have. And I usually post this in my Facebook group. If you're listening to this, if not, reach out to me, you can get this, but it's a short little guide, and it basically guides you through that, you know, looking at and trying to identify where is it that I need to, I've got opportunities of health. You know what, I'm only sleeping 4 hours a night. This is something that I probably need to work on. And then developing a strategy on what to do for that. The same with, you know, all these different things. And so goes through some of the different ideas on some of the testing, looking at what are some of the tests to look at, to consider, that you can get some great information on it if you're stuck. And then this great, this test here, and I got this one also online, it's just a really quick functional health assessment. Say, hey, you know what, how am I doing? Just kind of assessing, what is my current state of health? Am I seeing improvement, or, you know, maybe am I health, you know, where you're at on the scale of, you know, the toxic burden going on. And then there's some links and resources and that sort of a thing. So that pretty much wraps it up for today. I hope that this has been helpful, and it's so exciting, you know, to have you guys here. And I just want you guys to take one final thought away with you, and that is that you can do this. I truly believe in you, and I believe that you can reverse your autoimmunity, whatever it is. And even if you're a type 1 diabetic, I still believe in you in that. I still believe that I can reverse my son's type 1 diabetes. So I believe 100% in you. If you want to learn more about what it is that I do, what I teach, you can always go to my website. I also offer a complimentary discovery consultation. With that, we will go over that guide that I gave you. So I also have a Facebook group, Moms Taking Charge of Digestive Health, and it's open to all women. It's not just moms. Right now, it's only women, not men. So if you're a man right now, sorry. I do have some other sites. If there's the Art of Natural Healing is another group that I have. And then you can also follow me on my Facebook page, The Functional Perspective. So that was pretty much it. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I do have, I think, some other presentations coming. I forgot to put those slides in here. I have taking the toxic out of cleaning. And then, I do have, and I cannot believe that I forgot to put this slide in here. I'm getting ready to unroll or unravel or to let you all know that I am getting ready to offer this amazing genetic panel. It's basically your entire genome. With all your SNPs, where if any of you guys are following the 23andMe situation where they cut out a lot of SNPs, on top of that, they sold out to pharmaceutical company. So you don't really even get the pertinent SNPs you want, and now the pharmaceutical company has your information. But this one here is completely private and has like thousands and thousands, like over 15,000 SNPs, tons and tons and tons of SNPs or genes, so you can look to see if you have the SNPs. And then this great report that we can overlay it with your symptoms and say, hey, are these pathways expressing? Whether or not you have the genes or not. So whether or not your genes, we can see, okay, hey, you have potential here for this pathway. We got something you might want to consider. Or hey, there's no, this pathway genetically is fine, but you know what? It's having some problems. It's definitely, those pathways are expressing very adverse negatively. So it's a great, great tool. So I'm getting ready to offer that this next week. It is, I think $5.97 or $4.97. Oh my goodness, I didn't have the amount on that. I do have a coupon code for that as well. So be on the lookout for my website, because I have all the information on my website and on my Facebook page. So I think we're finalizing a couple of things on the coupon codes and things like that over the weekend. But that's a great option, and it includes a 1-hour consult with me. So it's a great way to connect with me, to get a really good strategy plan, to figure out, okay, what it is we need to help you look at those puzzle pieces for you, help you to put those things together, and then give you this great tool of knowing, hey, these are my genes, and this is the pathways, this is how they are expressing, you know, with the SNPs, or hey, without the SNPs. And that's just such a valuable piece of information. So that's pretty much it. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to me, and I will see you guys next time. And you all have a wonderful, great day. Take care.